Which leads me to a first question.
Uh-oh.
Which leads me to
This is how it starts.
to the first question.
I'll have you all diagnosed by the end of this chat.
No, because I know people would ask themselves this question on a daily basis, and they would struggle with the question itself, and they would panic about not knowing the answer to this question, and they most likely wouldn't know where to go to know this answer. But my first question would be, do you have any data, anything that you use for the film or in your own experience throughout these decades that would tell us how many of the neurotypical are actually undercover?
Well, at the moment, there's an estimated 20% of the population that are suspected to be or diagnosed as neurodivergent. But I don't think it matters. I don't think the diagnosis matters that much either. My personal opinion about all of this is that, we're just people, and everything's relational, and everybody has struggles, and everybody has things that they excel at, and everybody has things that they have deficits in. And, the label of ADHD or the label of autism or whatever, the plethora of diagnoses that I've collected over the years, none of them really matter. All that matters is that the friction that these things cause within social groups or within society. And that's the same thing that matters to literally everybody. So it's not the diagnosis, it's the way that we interact with each other, and either the deficit is a deficit of empathy, if anything.
How did it happen to you? Because I think in the film you mentioned that you said 50 years of this journey. Was there a specific event or that?
All right. So I said in the film before the film started that I wasn't going to trauma dump. Here we go. Talk about oversharing. So I was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder for many, many years, and I was really heavily medicated for that, and I was even incarcerated in psychiatric establishments because of that. But I'm not bipolar. I don't show any of the symptoms of that. What I am is working class. And I lived in a very dangerous environment. Just before I got my first section, I'd been stabbed a couple of weeks before, and I lived on a really rough estate, and getting stabbed was a bit of a hobby back then. And so I would arrive in hospital, obviously in a fractious state, and they would look at me and they'd think, oh, well, he's from the place that when he mentions the name of it, we do an intake of breath. He must be chaotic. He's probably bipolar. That's what you know. And so from that, I was immediately medicated on things like lithium and really, really strong medications. And every year I would say, these medications aren't really working. If anything, they're making me feel worse. And I still have all of the symptoms that I've had all of my life. That's because I wasn't a chaotic bipolar person, and that's no shade to bipolar people. I was just an autistic person reacting to a chaotic environment and struggling in a chaotic environment. And so in terms of a diagnosis, it was something I had to do myself about a decade ago now. I made the decision to go against medical advice, come off my medication. It's not something I'm recommending, and do a bit of research myself. And it was my wife actually who's also got an autism diagnosis. He said, "You're autistic. You're not bipolar. You don't show any of the symptoms. You do this, this, and this. You collect pebbles. You know what I mean?" And so it was a slow process, and that process meant that I got an official diagnosis, a medical diagnosis. But like I say, that didn't offer me anything other than a language to explain to other people why I don't like going to parties.
Do you see any improvement within the medical field for the support, the accompaniment?
This morning we were talking about representation of mental health in cinema. And I don't believe that there's a massive problem with representation of mental health in cinema. What there is a colossal problem with empathy within capitalism. People who work within cinema don't receive the care and attention they need, because nobody does. Yes, there's been improvements in our understanding around things. There's been improvements in the conversation, but like in terms of like the treatment that people receive, in terms of like things that matter, like functioning services, they're in decline. You know, I had better psychiatric treatment that when I was, 19. I'm 51 next month, and I would get terrible psychiatric treatment now. So like, the problem isn't the problem is structural. The problem isn't about the conversation. It isn't about people being aware. We're all aware of what to do when somebody's suffering. But if somebody's floodlighting you because they're psychotic, they don't need a conversation. They need supportive services, And it's the same with neurodivergence. We need what we need in terms of getting systemic support, not in terms of people being aware that we're neurodivergent.
And we live in it seems to me we live in a dysfunctional society more and more to some extent. So I guess it doesn't necessarily help.
Yeah, the older I get, obviously, is probably very obvious, the more I blame capitalism for everything. And it's really, what I blame is economics. We put profit in front of people, and that's the issue. That's the issue. When neurodivergent people burn out at work because they can't cope, like I work really hard. I often work like 14, 18-hour days even. I've not slept in the last 2 nights because I've been working to get stuff done. And so it's not a matter of like laziness. It's a matter of not being able to function within a system that doesn't understand my needs. Or it does actually. It does understand my needs very, very well. It understands all of our needs. It just doesn't care about them because for financial and economic reasons. Pitchfork sharpened, everybody.
When you said in the film, I'm sorry if I misquote, but something around, I believe I'm an artist because I've been a neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit?
I'm so sorry to bring all this back to like kind of class and stuff, but like, because I grew up in social housing with limited, I got kicked out of school because I'm neurodivergent. The intersection of these two things meant that I had very, very little opportunity. I had nowhere to go, and the arts was genuinely a refuge for my weirdness, and the only place where I could exist and explain away my behavior without it being like massively judged negatively. I couldn't, I wanted a job, a normal job. I just wanted to just like exist, but the arts, fortunately, was the only place I could do that. But it's not the same anymore. Like, it's a lot harder now for those same economic reasons, funding cuts and whatnot. It's harder and harder for the weirdos to survive, and that's a tragedy.
And it feels like the elitism also switched from a place to another place, from maybe a technical elite to now, I would say, financial elite. And like you were talking about funding this morning, and I wanted to ask you earlier today, how much of your anxiety is fed by all the efforts you have to make to chase money to produce your film, etc., and all the opportunity that you and other people, whether they're neurodivergent or not, but artist people in general, although we have plethora, it looks like we have plethora of funding, it's still a hunt, and you're more likely to be the prey at the end of the day.
I've just got to give a shout out to the funders, Unlimited, who are in today, because there are few and far between funders who'll fund someone like me these days, especially on a project like this. I mean, it's not going to shock anybody in this room. I had never made a film before. In fact, I opened the editing software for the first time to make this film. I've blagged my way into like loads of arts jobs over the last 30 years, and I've worked my way through it and gotten away with it by the skin of my teeth. Turns out filmmaking's quite technical, so I couldn't blag my way through it, and so thankfully I had amazing people like Sam over there who did the soundtrack, and Richard at Plume Films who did a lot of the animation. I've been collaborating with for years. But like it is a colossal anxiety trying to find funding, especially if you're a bit of an outsider and a bit of an outlier. You know, I don't have a degree in anything. I left school early. I don't really know anything about anything. I just enjoy creating things. And I've had some success at that. I've been very, very lucky. But it's luck, you know, luck and tenacity, I suppose. But that's not enough in the current climate to survive as an artist, especially as, a working class one.
You mentioned your passion and your need to create.
Yeah.
At some point, Elif was had a lapsus in what I want, and she said what I need, and correct herself. And I don't know if it was on purpose. I really loved maybe the typo in the medical, but the magical wasn't the subtitle.
Yeah, no, that's completely, that's kismet.
I really love that.
Synchronicity.
The medical reality, she said, and that became the magical reality. just amazing lapsus. You, both of you, try to explain the doing. You need to do.
Yeah.
Right. It might sound like a stupid question, but what is the form of art, or is there any artwork that you would enjoy seeing, but not necessarily doing? Is there something that you know will just bring you peace or bring you focus? Or
well, it's not so much as a medium of artwork. It's more like pieces that, you know, like we all love seeing something that we know we couldn't do. We don't have the technical skills or whatever, and it could be like I can get lost in a painting, or I can. It doesn't. The medium doesn't matter. It's our relationship with individual bits of work, and there's an infinite number of those that I can appreciate. Yeah.
And do you think that these conditions or these symptoms you have would cut you from appreciating some form of art, or not necessarily?
Well, that's what I'm trying to address. Like, I can't sit still. I've got no focus, and I get antsy, and I really like. A friend of mine took me to Sadler's Wells once to watch a 3.5 hour bit of dance, and it was stunning, but excruciating for me because of my attention span. And so, like, you know, there's things that I can appreciate in small doses, but really what we want to start, or what I'm really interested in looking at, is how neurodivergent audiences, how can we change things for neurodivergent audiences? What are our access requirements to enjoy things in the same way that neurotypical people can do? What can venues do? What can promoters do? What can festival organisers do? And there are tons and tons of things. Like, I've done a lot of research over this over the last like 5 or 6 years.
On this, is there like technical changes to be made within the artwork? Like, I would say, like dyslexic people, I know very little, but you know, you would have color filters and is there any progress on that? Is there any ideas on that?
There's loads of, you know, I wasn't joking when I said I run neurodivergent accessible club nights. It's a thing I've been doing for a while, and everything we do is about access provision. That's not just neurodivergent access provision, it's disability access provision as well. So we have a gradient of sensory experience. That's what we aim for. So we use silent disco headphones, but we'll also have a room with a big bass bin in that you can go, if you're sensory seeking, you can go and find a sensory seeking experience. If you're sensory avoidant, you can have a sensory avoidant experience. And everything in between, we offer things like gaming and structured social interaction for people like me who really struggle with the random nature of natural social interaction. And so there's lots of things that like I do in that club environment, and loads of stuff that can also be applied to cinema and things like that. And throughout the world, relaxed cinema experiences are happening that allow certain spaces for people to do the things that they need to do in order to focus. Some people need to divert their attention between multiple things in order to focus, because we just have that kind of type of brain.
I think it's maybe time to open the floor to questions. I don't know, we have maybe some microphone to share.
I was just wondering if you're touring the film, and if we have organisations that might like to book the film, what that looks like.
So the next, this is a little weird thing. You know, I don't know what the future of this will be. But I know it'll have a little tour and a little Q&A, and I'll probably run my Disco Neurotico nights with it. And then because of other work that I'm doing in the industry, I have the privilege of access to producers and stuff like that. So I'm leveraging kind of the other movie project that I'm working on to get this out as well. And so the idea is that I'll do a little tour and people hopefully will come and see it. But if they want the other movie if Spaces want the other movie that I'm making, then they'll have to have this one as well, maybe. So that's the idea, is that it'll end up on a streamer somewhere. A greatly edited version of it will end up on a streamer somewhere.
Please.
Again, it's a statement and a question, Byron.
Yeah.
I think because you're very modest and you never talk about your talent, you talk about look, etc. You're very talented, and you should take that. But my question is, will you bring Disco Neurotico back to because we had a
almost made it.
phenomenal time with Disco Neurotico.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to. It's all, again, it's funding. You know, like, it's really expensive to put on the Disco Neurotico events. You know, in parts of the country, they cost like 10 grand to put on.
Can you tell the audience a bit more about it?
So they are basically accessible neurodivergent. They started off as neurodivergent accessible events. We have multiple DJs playing different genres of music, and we have live performers who sort of look after the crowd. They're really skilled at what they do, and we try to be really welcoming. There's a lot of orientation material that we hand out beforehand, and I try and be present for everyone. Like, a lot of it is just for neurodivergent people, or especially for autistic people. It can be very difficult. We've had bad times going out in the world, so we don't want to do it. So I'll make myself available for one-on-one chats to people in the months leading up to events, so that I can say, look, I get it. And if you're nervous about anything, this person will look after you. I'll be there. Come and talk to me, whatever. And there's that, along with all the kind of the highest standard of kind of access provision, general access provision that we can offer as well. But really, they're banging parties as well. So, you know, there's that.
Yeah, I'm quite sad we didn't manage to put
Next
this together.
time, yeah,
Next
we'll
time.
be back. We'll be back.
Speak a lot about obviously hyperfocus and like how that can be like an incredible kind of boon to creative endeavors, and maybe even like the film itself. I don't know if you have experienced a lot of like hyperfocus while you were making it, with the sort of passion that went into it. But obviously the downside to that is that the fall off and the kind of like once that momentum sort of like ends. So I wondered if like a little bit of the sort of really the idea of the process when you were making the film, if you experienced that hyper-focus, and then whether there was a little bit of a fall-off for yourself and you kind of lose interest. I know when I was sort of like making short films when I was a student and stuff like that, I'd get, I'd fall in love with all the production, and I would get to the editing and I'd kind of burn out and almost be disinterested at that point, and almost like want to hand it off and not really kind of want to be part of it anymore, because I wanted to move on to something else. Because you kind of, you sort of yell that momentum kind of goes out.
Very relatable. You know, like it's not just a one-time thing. You know, especially over a project that takes. You know, this has been over a year or so, longer. I've done no idea. I time blind, aren't I? But like, however long it's been, you know, that like today I want to create. I hate this and I'm never looking at that thing again, especially because it involved so much technical stuff that I do not care for. Like, you know, I edited it all. If you look at the, I was watching the other films today and looking at the the credits, sorry, and there's so many people on other people's films. We're like 5 people, you know. So so a lot of that work I just didn't have a clue how to do. So I've had to learn it as I've gone. That's that kind of John Lennon quote in it, where like I'm an artist. Give me a tuber, I'll give you something out of it. Like I was hoping it would be that way about film, but film's so technical. I'm just getting away with it. But yeah, with a lot of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to open Premiere Pro. It's boring and I don't like it. Cheers, mate. Thanks. Cheers. Well, it isn't finished. You know, it will never be finished.
Sir, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a film editor and I edit documentaries as well.
Oh, hello.
So from my perspective, I wouldn't be able to make that at all with all my experience. I've been editing for 20, 25 years now. I wouldn't be able to make that in the slightest. It's incredibly idiosyncratic. You've got jump cuts in there. There's loads of rules you break, but that's what they're there for. And then I wouldn't be able to make that. And I think you've made something brilliant, really. Like, it's completely from your perspective, the way that you use soundscapes and like cut them off, the way that you do jump cuts, it feels like
Natural.
It feels experiential to how you feel. So, and I just think you should just be really proud of that.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really nice to hear. Thanks. Because I really don't know what I'm doing, so that's very generous. Thank you. Yeah, it's called Disco Neurotico. There's a website. If you want sort of information about what we do at the nights, there's an Instagram that gets posted. We post to regularly, and there's some kind of information about what to expect. And I'll regularly just drop a bit of every event's a little bit different. So I'll give a lot of orientation information, video tours of venues, anything that you might need to know in order to relax you before the best night of your life.
Byron, I know this still needs to be finished.
Yeah.
What are you working on next? What's in your mind?
Oh, thank you. So I'm working on I'm working on loads of stuff. I'm doing loads of Disco Neurotico stuff. I've got a bunch of events in London, and it's touring as well. I'm off to Istanbul with this and Disco Neurotico. But the thing I'm most excited about is I'm writing a script for the BFI. It's called Lashes, and it's a coming-of-age tale, and it's got a neurodivergent working-class protagonist, which is probably why my head's so in. Why I keep repeating that phrase. And so, like, you know, the film industry is precarious. I'm very aware that I'm in a privileged position to be making a feature film in Britain, but they could pull funding anytime. You know, it might never happen. So fingers crossed. It's very, very different from this. It's a linear, it's a linear narrative, and it's quite emotional, and it's very, very personal. And please come and see it. Please come and see it.
Thank you very much, Byron, for sharing with us, for your presence, and for your passion. I think it went through very clearly. Thank you all for being here and for the questions. Thank you again.